Councilor Burton, thanks for joining us today. So being our first guest, will you just tell us a little bit more about yourself? Tell us about your professional background and anything that you would like the folks out there to know about you.
Yeah, sure. Name is Alex Burton. I'm born and raised here in Evansville, Indiana. Um, it's a pleasure to be back as an adult. I never saw myself coming back home, but here we are. So I graduated from high school in 2007. I attended Indiana State University, where I got my degree in communications with a minor in nonprofit management. While I was there, I was extremely active with the Student Government Association, solving problems that arose on campus, and I even had the opportunity to intern with Jonathan Weinzapfel, who's currently running for Attorney General right now. But as he was mayor, I had the opportunity to work with him and really see his vision for what he saw Evansville becoming. So that was an amazing opportunity, especially for someone who didn't take one political science course at Indiana State. And I really saw myself. I really saw myself with a passion, for helping people through the realm of government. And so from there, I was a junior in college at the time, and I was looking at what my next step was going to be, what it was going to look like. And that then turned into getting my master's at Western Kentucky University, where again was another great opportunity where I was able to work with not only students, but I was able to do two internships, intern for two members of Congress, one being Jim Cooper of Nashville and the other one being Yvette Clarke, who represents Brooklyn. During this time, there was a lot going on, and it was a great opportunity at the time. It was December 2012. And so now I am, obviously I moved back home, but from there, my goal was to get back on the Hill to be a staffer. But with the government shutdown happened, it forced me to come back home, where I started working for Old National Bank, really getting involved within our community. And then, I really started looking at local government and seeing some things that were really moving slower than what I anticipated them being. Then that me observing became to me getting, frustrated as to what's going on. So then I stepped up and ultimately ran, and here I am as a city councilman.
Wow, that's impressive stuff. So you have like a history of public service, so that's great. So speaking of that, it's a nice segue. What makes your role as council president unique?
Um, I'll say unique because one, this is my first, year serving as a city councilman, and here I am as president. But even moving beyond that, it's really setting the agenda as to what the city of Evansville looks like from a policy perspective. I oftentimes tell people that it's how there's the president and there's Congress in a city, there's the mayor, and then there's city council. And so everything as it relates to policy, unique, certainly trying to solve the problems as the city finances are, took a hit. Housing remains a huge issue in our community, and even more so now in the middle of COVID, making sure that every resident in the city of Evansville, whether they're you know a child or an adult, family or no family, have access to clean, safe, and affordable housing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Actually, I'm going to ask you about that more specifically. AARP Indiana is really concerned about housing as well. We're really concerned about housing that allows individuals to age in place, so age in their community, as opposed to maybe having to transition to a nursing home or a long-term care facility, something like that. So affordable, safe, and accessible housing is a huge priority for us. And I know that the city, like as you mentioned, has a shortage of quality affordable housing. How are you and the council specifically working to address that issue?
Um, Really empowering organizations who are coming asking the city for finances. That's the quick and easiest way for us to do it. But also working with them to make sure that we're moving the needle. It's not enough to just say, "Oh, we'll have 30 additional units." We need hundreds. And so it's also working within the in the weeds of the building commission to make sure that we're able to build lots within, on the smaller lots, we're able to build homes as opposed to just, you know, where one home once stood and another blighted, you tear them both down. Instead of there being two homes, we're now dealing with one home being there. So really just trying to figure out and navigating the legality and the procedures to making sure that we're being responsible. We're being responsible and making sure that there's infill and not a
Right.
waste of space.
Right, right. Well put. Yeah, I definitely think like more housing options there are, that will drive down costs that can assist with providing more choices for residents. So, Counselor, you highlighted some of the policy priorities that you're concerned about earlier in your intro. Can you talk a little bit more about those priorities that the council at large has that maybe you all are supporting and trying to accomplish this year?
Yeah, sure. In the middle of the pandemic, housing is taking a lot of our attention, but we're also looking to address food access, and at the same time looking at ways to increase the tax base that we have here in the city. So whether that's housing, vacant commercial space, really reactivating all of that to make sure that residents are now, getting an entrepreneurial spirit, but also attracting developers into our community as well.
Awesome, awesome. um, given the state of COVID-19, I know that would definitely has impacted, the council's priorities, the city's priorities. How is the council specifically working with the mayor's office to respond to the crisis?
Sure. So it's a lot of communications, right? So
Yep.
we're all working through this together, trying to really do what's best and not really, not trying to make it political by any means. Just put all the options on the table and just
Mhm.
work together to solve them. Thankfully, it's been a lot of executive decisions made that the council agrees with, as opposed to us clashing in a public domain that isn't good for anyone. So
Right.
so much has been said. We're all in this together and just focused on doing what we need to.
Counselor, the city budget process will kick off in August. So, given the fiscal impacts of COVID-19, is there anything that you and the council are looking for, trying to maybe maintain funding for certain things, or trying to what are your priorities in regards to the budget?
Good question. Right now, the mayor has worked with the department heads to cut about 3 million um, in reduction going into this next year. I'm really curious to see how the next the next 3 to 4 weeks play out, whether that leads us to another shutdown or if we're able to muscle through it. Uh, it's going to be a hard transition, right? We don't know what we don't know, and we can only go off the revenue that we have, right? So now this budget is going to be extremely difficult. There's going to be a lot of tough conversations to be had. Um, and my perspective is really that, to be fair, there's, been a lot of calls for, defunding the police, but at this point, I don't know what's not going to be defunded, because, there's a lack of just overall resources. And so as we have these conversations, they're going to be tough, but we have to look out for the well-being of our community and what makes the most sense. And, as I mentioned earlier, it's important that we're looking at ways to really increase the revenue here in the community. So
Gotcha,
that's where we're
gotcha.
at.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think Evansville's alone in that situation at all. So, counselor, in your view, I'm curious to know one of the reasons I really wanted to bring you on as one of our first guests is, you know, I'm fascinated in how AARP members and just 50 people who are 50 years and older can best understand how the city works and how they can make an impact and engage with the city. So, how can like the layperson, the regular citizen, introduce ideas to the city council that they might have?
Um, I'll be the first to tell you, I love when people come to our city council meetings and use the 3 minutes that every resident has. And in doing so, the ideas not only are recorded into public broadcast, but they're in front of all the council members. And as president, specifically for me, I like to follow up with everyone who comes before us to present an idea or wants to talk through an issue that they're having. And even if that is, even if that may lead to a task force being created to specifically address an issue going on, I'd be all for it. The most recent thing that we've done is create a youth council for the
Oh, great.
For the city council, create a youth task force that will ultimately be a youth council to address concerns that the youth have about the city. But then even moving beyond that, just using all the resources that we have to make sure that all the residents in the city of Evansville have their voices heard.
Definitely, definitely. And remind me once again, how can the regular citizen provide comment or ask questions? You mentioned something about 3 minutes at the council meetings.
Yes. So every resident has an initial 3 minutes to speak about whatever's on their mind. If it's everything ranging from trash to crime happening in their community, whatever the issue is, it can be discussed within that time. And nothing formal has to be done. Just at the end of our meetings, we allow public comment. And
Wonderful.
a resident can speak during that time.
Awesome, awesome. So I have a couple more questions for you. What is one thing that you would like the public to know about the city council or your role as a counselor? Is there anything that they might not be familiar with that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, sure. I'd say I think that the public doesn't necessarily use all of their power as it relates to talking to the members of council and getting things done. The simple things sometimes go too long unanswered, but a quick phone call or a message can get things done a lot sooner and have the most direct impact as to what the community looks like and is.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, Councilor Burton, thanks for being with us today. And I just have one last question for you. It's a little bit of a fun question. If you were stranded on a deserted island and you had food and water taken care of, what are 2 things that you would want to have with you and why?
On a deserted island, phone wouldn't make any sense because it's on a deserted island. I would say a water filter and animal crackers.
Okay, there you go. So you just double down on the food and water. I like it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Council President. I really appreciate you being with us today. And I'm sure you'll see our red shirts at council meetings coming down in the future. So we look forward to meeting with you again and discussing the issues that affect the city. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on this panel, having this conversation. If there's anything I can do for you or the rest of the AARP, please don't hesitate to let me know.